ways that the county that is giving the public an opportunity to get involved in the redistricting process before any votes happen. And that is taking place in the city, particularly in the Latino community. And so if politicians are going to be involved, at least as of the moment, I would say follow the city process.
I'm sorry.
If I can just add one thing, not to steal anything away from Mayor Barrett, but before he proposed an independent district, Supervisor Rice actually had a resolution come before the county board that he fought very hard to even get a hearing on that would have appointed an independent district to do the county and to prevent this exact problem that we have right now. So that's the method I would prefer. But as stated, really, the whole issue, again, could be averted with transparency. And I think the city of Milwaukee, the fact, the way they did it is just so much different than the way the county went through their process. I mean, you have a prime example that if elected officials are going to be in charge of this process, you need to follow the example the city of Milwaukee did as opposed to the route that Milwaukee County has taken.
Not a member of the panel.
I don't. But,
well, because you're the chair of the ICC, I'll give you a minute.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment on the Mayor Barrett resolution. When Mayor Barrett introduced that at the ICC meeting, the overwhelming reaction, unrehearsed, there was no orchestration whatsoever, Republicans, Democratic, mayors, village presidents, unanimously said, yes, take the politicians out of the process. And we just, at our last ICC meeting, voted on this, and I believe there was only one mayor that voted against it. Every mayor, every village president backs Barrett's proposal to take the politicians out. So you have the wonderful situation of your elected officials saying, we understand that is the process, take us out.
All right, a couple of questions just to try to get on the table. Why? Why did all of you turn out today? Why does this matter to the citizens of Milwaukee County and Whitefish Bay? Let's start with Whitefish Bay. For the citizens of Whitefish Bay, who under the tentative county board plan will now see their village represented by two different county supervisors. My question is, why would I, as a resident of Whitefish Bay, be concerned about that? Very practically speaking, why does that matter to me? And also, might I also look at it as, gee, then we have 2 out of 18 who represent some portion of Whitefish Bay, which gives us 1/9 of the county board as opposed to 1/18. So why should I be upset by this?
I think we need another frank and honest response. And that would be, when I served on the board for 12 years, I'll be very honest with you. When I had people that came to see me at the courthouse, and they were from my district, we're all human, we're going to listen a little closer to the people that elect us to our office. We are representing them. This redistricting is the fundamental core of our democracy, deciding how we will elect the people that represent us. Now, if you're in Whitefish Bay, and you're in the, and it has nothing to do with the city of Milw. If that was Glendale, I'd say the same thing, or whatever. No, not Glendale, because that's the North Shore, but any other community. The point is, if you're in that small segment, and you go to whoever that county board member might be, how important is that little piece to that person in that district? That's an important thing, and I think accurate observation. People look to see who they're representing, and they're going to try to represent what the majority feels in their district. And we've had such a wonderful continuity and mutually supportive relationship with all these North Shore communities for the entire history of redistricting. Why would we change that? With all the progress that's been made, all the cooperation, all these elected officials here tonight, why would we change that? Why would we break that up? That'd be my response. I know you can say you can get 2, but is it really 2 with the same passion for this, what we're trying to accomplish here in this region, to try to do the consolidation of services, shared services, all these other things that we're attempting to accomplish?
Okay. Another question about why this matters. Milwaukee County's financial challenges, as has been alluded to by several of our panelists, are clearly well known. Its pension and retiree health care costs are growing at unsustainable rates, while it relies very heavily on state aids that have been stagnant for the past decade and are now being substantially reduced. Meanwhile, key county services are suffering with cuts in mass transit, a large backlog of parks maintenance and infrastructure needs, and a series of challenges facing mental health services heading up the list. My question for our panelists is, why do the lines on the map and why does the size of the county board matter when it comes to addressing these very serious problems? Anyone want to talk about it?
I'll start. I think that from an inside look into the situation, the makeup of the board is such that I feel we tend to micromanage a lot of things, and we'll pay attention to some of the minutest details of some of the most unimportant issues, and then we'll go ahead and approve a $30 million bond offering in 5 seconds. And so, you know, we don't have the focus that we need to have on the issues. I mean, Milwaukee County, it's a very large county, it provides a lot of services, and so why does the size matter? I think it's because a lot of times, as Victor mentioned, you can have a big group of people, but they can't reach consensus on any one thing, and so you have a lot of things that don't get done properly. And when you have a smaller size, everybody takes it upon themselves to focus on their one area of expertise, and you're going to tend to get things done much better. You mentioned the mental health, for example. I mean, there's a prime example. Dating back to the 1990s, we've had study after study done that tells us the delivery model we're using out there is incorrect. It's not right. It needs to be changed. Now we've commissioned a third study in 3 decades that tells us the exact same thing, but nothing ever gets done. Now, if we just do all these studies and we throw them on a shelf, we're not helping anybody. We need a smaller board to be focused on the bigger picture so that we can fix these problems that are there and not micromanage something to death so that we're so worried about arguing over every last little detail that nothing ends up getting. And unfortunately, I think that's what we've seen with the board in the past.
Well, that point taken to an extreme would lend itself to an argument that we should just have a county board of 1. There wouldn't be any disagreement there, would there? But that wouldn't adequately represent everybody in the county, which is what our main concern is. As I said earlier, we are concerned that our representation would be diminished if there was just a very small amount of seats that were won with big money elections. We understand the tremendous fiscal issues that the county faces. In particular, the issue of transportation is enormous to us. I'm sure that almost all of you drove here. There are tons of people in my neighborhoods that don't have a car, they can't afford a car. They need to get to a job. All of the net job growth, according to Mark Levine, in Metro Milwaukee since 1980 has taken place outside the city of Milwaukee. Therefore, we need to travel to our jobs, and if we don't have a car, we need to take the bus. And if the bus keeps getting slashed, people can't get to jobs. And if they can't get to jobs, they can't, quote unquote, pull themselves up by the bootstraps. And so one way or another, we need to make sure that we have the sort of representation that's going to make sure that the transit system, for example, is fully funded so that we can better ourselves. And we feel that that requires more than just a small handful of county board supervisors.
If I could just repeat the question. The question was, why drawing the district lines make a difference? And let me just give you an example. Let's just take Supervisor Rice. Now he'll lose a portion of Whitefish Bay that we've already talked about. He'll be reattached, going all the way down to an entirely different district. He hasn't announced whether he's going to run again. I've lived in this area my entire life. I'm looking at who I'd like to see represent me in terms of facing these fiscal issues and problems that Mr. Hankins talking about. And I'm thinking, this devious plan to harm him will deny us the possibility of having him continue to represent us on the county board. That's a distinct possibility. That's a direct answer to that question. Do drawing the lines make a difference? And what impact does it have on the fiscal health of Milwaukee County in dealing with fiscal issues? So there's a clear example of why this matters, and frankly, why we're here tonight.
Okay, you've been out of office for 35 years, but clearly you still have the pulse of your former district. So, okay, those are panelists. Nice job, but now your job may get more difficult because now we're going to turn it out to the audience. I will call on people to ask questions. My only request, no speeches, please. We're looking for questions, okay? So if you're starting to give a long speech, I might have to cut you off. Yes, sir.
My name is Mike Christopoulos. I'm from Brown Deer. The county board staff consulted with virtually every supervisor besides Joe Rice in preparing the tentative plan that it approved. Also, in light of the fact that Joe Rice filed an ethics complaint against County Board Chairman Lee Holloway, doesn't that confirm that there was a clear intent to target him and remove his voice from the county board? And I'd like to hear several of the people that haven't spoken on this issue, because I've heard quite a bit from Mr. Mulcahy. I'd like to hear the others talk about it.
Anyone other than Mr. Mulcahy care to respond to that? Supervisor Sample, I'll start.
It is hard, it's hard to think that there wasn't some motive when you take a look at the simple fact, as I mentioned before, the 5th supervisory district lost 5,300 residents. Yet that district was virtually left intact, it wasn't dissolved. But District 6, which actually gained people, and albeit not a huge number, but it gained people, that district was disseminated. So when you look at it in that context, it's hard to think that, you know, this was a complete plan that was done without any motive. I can't say what the motive was, who the motive came from, but it's, you know, we haven't heard any good answers from anybody on the county board who supported this plan as to why this plan was presented the way it was, and why District 6 was cut, and why District 5 wasn't touched. When, again, and not only did District 5 lose the biggest amount of people, but it also has a supervisor who's not running for re-election, so you're not stepping on anybody's toes by dissolving that district. And we haven't heard any good answers as to why it was done that way.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Lori Rollins. I'm a Whitefish Bay resident and one of the trustees here in Whitefish Bay. One of the major issues that's going to have to be decided is the size of the board and whether it should be full-time or part-time. Could you educate us a little bit about what the day-to-day responsibilities of a county supervisor are and what the major services that the county provides as distinguished from the municipalities within the county? Like, what's the difference between the services the village of Whitefish Bay provides versus the county of Milwaukee?
At the risk of answering all the questions like Mr. Mulcahy, I'll jump in on this one too. You know, the county, first let me start by saying this. You can't really judge every county, every district identical. Some districts have many more issues to deal with than other districts. So we have to always keep that in context. Districts that use a larger percentage of county provided services, those supervisors are going to be busier and they may have more activity versus a district like mine where, you know, we don't use a lot of county services in my district, I'll admit that. Now, that said, as I mentioned before when we talked about full-time, part-time, with Milwaukee County being the only county with all of the municipalities incorporated, a lot of the services, more of your day-to-day services are provided on the local municipal level as opposed to county boards, as opposed to counties in other areas of the state, which bodes well for that discussion of, you know, should we lower the size or should we go to a part-time job? The county board, in a typical day, what we do, we'll get calls with people that have issues with, badger care, things like that, court issues with the parks or the sheriff's department. So we do get issues to deal with. As I mentioned, some offices are busier than others. But Milwaukee County, maybe even more so than other counties around the state, as Mr. Mulcahy did mention, we have a large staff, but we have a very, very good staff. And that was one thing that I'll say I was very surprised at when I came on the